Hi folks. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement. So as we come together today, it is our responsibility to take time to reflect on where we are in this moment, how we got here, and who came before us. I grew up in the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Mississaugas, and am a descendant of white colonizers who settled on the traditional territory of the Wendake-Neonwetsiow in the 1700s, land my family still occupies and benefits from today. I currently live in Niagara and work here at Brock, which is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement, an agreement that draws on the land as a dish to be shared and cared for to ensure ongoing sustenance and life. While Niagara and the many places from which we gather have a beautiful history, they also share a dark colonial past. Acknowledging this personal and institutional history and the sentiments of the agreement under which the land is protected is a step to honor the broken relationships and is a symbol of commitment to truth and reconciliation efforts. I encourage everyone to take the time to not only learn more about the lands on which you currently and have historically occupied, but to challenge themselves to take part in the 92 calls of action to move us closer to the goals of truth and reconciliation. With that, I will introduce myself. My name is Carolyn. I am the Manager of Student Leadership and Engagement within Student Life. So I work with Lauren on our Student Event Risk Management approvals team, but I also spend a lot of time in our student leadership spaces as well as of our orientation and engagement areas, which I'll talk a little bit more in a bit.
And hi everyone, my name's Lauren, as Carolyn and Chloe mentioned. So I am the Engagement Systems Coordinator in Student Life. And so what that means is Serma is a big part of my portfolio. So some of you, if you're returners or if this is a refresher training, you might have seen my name on some of your event approvals or in comments. So I focus a lot on the student event risk management side of things, campus promotions. So if you are going to be hosting an event, any kind of promotional materials need to come through campus promotions. I oversee that as well. All things related to Experience BU, and then kind of overseeing our larger strategy in terms of social media and online presence for Student Life. So that's a little bit about my portfolio. Just want to check, can folks in the back hear Carolyn and I okay? Okay, amazing. Just wanted to make sure. If you can't hear us at any time, please just raise your hand and we'll speak louder. So in terms of our agenda today, we have a pretty full agenda in a relatively short period of time. So we have quite a bit to get through. But really the bulk of the training today is about Serma, as Chloe mentioned, another acronym for you to remember, but Student Event Risk Management and Approval Process. We'll talk a little bit about Experience BU and kind of how to utilize that platform to ensure your event is successful. And part of that includes event attendance. We'll talk a little bit about the CWC, the campus-wide co-curriculum. We'll highlight some resources, and then we likely won't have time for a Serma walkthrough. We'll probably switch gears and hold that just for some questions. So student event risk management and approval. So your safety and the safety of the attendees who are coming to your events is our #1 priority. And that's really why and how the Serma process, thanks Carolyn, was it came about. So what is risk management, you might be wondering? So risk management really in a simple way means that you are thinking ahead about things that potentially could go wrong, or you're giving a lot of consideration to a variety of different risk factors at your event. And then you're putting really clear and practical steps in place to try to reduce any kind of harm or injury or damage to participants or personal property. So we really want to emphasize here today that Serma is required. So all student events and official club activities need to be approved through the Serma process on Experience BU. And what that approval process is, there's kind of 2 layers to it when it comes to BUSU clubs. So when it gets submitted on Experience BU, Chloe is kind of that first line of defense of approvals, and she'll do that initial review, and then it comes to Carolyn and I for that second review. And then once it's approved from the student life perspective, that's when it's public and visible on Experience BU. So risk management really is your responsibility as a student. So when you are creating and planning these events, giving thought to different considerations around event planning is really, really important. And the Serma form, we think it's relatively straightforward, but also recognize if it's your first time going through it, it might seem like a lot, but it's really designed to help you think through all of the different logistical elements of running a successful event. So I'm not going to share this video with you today, but it is a great resource for you. So I encourage you to watch it on your own time if you have some free time. But the great thing is that Serma is built right into Experience BU. So sometimes we get asked, like, how do I access the Serma form? By creating an event on Experience BU, the Serma form is built right in. So when you go to create an event on Experience BU, you'll answer a few questions, and then it kind of just naturally transitions into that Serma form where you will get asked a series of questions. And the types of questions you get asked really vary depending on what's happening at your event. So say, for example, you answer yes to, will your event have food? Then the form kind of populates specific questions about that so that we can collect more information about that. So I just want you to take the next 30 seconds or so and turn to the person next to you and think about what are some of the factors or what are some things that could potentially impact or affect the level of risk for an event. So you're planning an event, what are some risk factors that you might want to consider that might be associated with planning an event? So go ahead and just take the next 30 seconds or so and talk to the person next to you. So this is a pretty big list. Hopefully you can see that okay. But that first column on the left-hand side there kind of provides a bit of an overview or things that you might want to think about or consider when you're planning that event. So event size, for example, how many people are coming? Is it a large group? Is it a small group? If it's a really large scale event, does campus security need to be involved? So thinking about that, doing a small event where 10 club members are making friendship bracelets is very, very different than 200 people coming to Ian Bettis for a basketball tournament. That's just an example. Attendees, so is it for club members or the campus community only, or is this an event that you are inviting external community members to? Level of activity, again, sitting down and doing a craft night is different than hiking, for example. So that's something to consider. Will there be alcohol there? If so, will you have underage participants at your event? How are people getting home safely if alcohol is going to be present? The time of the event, so the time of the day, for example, sometimes we'll see, especially when the weather gets nicer, but people are hosting events out in Jubilee Court. Is it night? Are you doing it at nighttime? And can you still engage in the activities you want to if it's dark? If it's later in the evening or on a weekend, thinking about building access, do you need to have rooms unlocked? The venue, if it's on campus versus off campus, there's considerations there. Transportation was mentioned. How are folks getting there? Is it local independent travel? Are you renting a chartered bus? There's a lot of different factors when it comes to transportation. Travel, that's a big one. Is it a local event? Is it over 200 kilometers away? Is it outside of Ontario? Is it outside of Canada? There's a whole another kind of layer of considerations when travel is involved. Weather conditions, so again, the Brock Run Club, maybe somebody's here from that club, are you having your run outside if it's going to be a snowstorm? Food and drink, Carolyn will talk a little bit about that later on in the presentation, but proper food handling and safety. Are you bringing in external caterers to your event? Speakers and entertainers, are you having a Brock faculty come to speak at your event or another club member, or are you inviting an external guest? University reputation, so is this event going to attract any kind of media attention? University operational impact, so does this impact normal university operations? Emergency planning, so if as much as we want to think we've thought of everything and planned for everything, when it comes to events, something unexpected will come up. Not necessarily something wrong, but something unexpected. So how are you going to kind of navigate that? Contingency plans, so again, those backup plans if you're planning an outdoor event. Do you have, plan B in case it rains? And accessibility considerations. So can all students, fully participate and enjoy this event? Are there any barriers that you need to consider? Are you keeping inclusion in mind when you're creating those events?
So with all of those event considerations, we have the Brock University Event Risk Assessment Protocol. So this was it kind of gets updated yearly. So this was last updated in August, and we'll see if it needs to be updated for this year as well. But it outlines our process for reviewing events and what happens if we deem an event requires an enhanced review process. So I highly recommend that folks give this a read, because it outlines what happens if we kind of are like, that's a little bit of a riskier event. What steps need to get taken. Sometimes we need to have a meeting with you and have a little bit more information so that we can move forward that isn't fully captured in the submission form, or we have some clarifying questions. Sometimes it's additional information, like if you're flying out of province to a conference, we need your flight numbers. We need to make sure that all participants have health insurance with them and on them, and they know how to access that, and the trip leader has allergy or medical information available for all participants. So there's things that are not necessarily always captured in the form that we might need information on. It may also involve us involving other campus partners. So if you're bringing, if you're screening a documentary that might have sensitive content that might impact folks who are watching it or participating in the event, we might consult with Human Rights and Equity or Student Wellness and Accessibility Center on how we can make sure that students are supported and being able to have good conversations, even if the content might be impactful. So sometimes that's consulting other folks, sometimes that's asking for more information, but it is all outlined as best as we can in this protocol, because every event is very, very different. So we've tried to make like giant flow charts on like, okay, if this happens, then this happens. And it was gonna be like a 40 million point flow chart, because everything's so different. But this gives a pretty good overview. The most often when this comes up is when things are higher risk. So what we call a level 2 or a level 3, which is outlined. You can see a little bit of it in this chart over here. So for example, event size is the risk consideration. A level 1 is fewer than 100 attendees. Cool, great, that's pretty manageable. A level 2 is between 100 to 200 attendees. There might be some more considerations that need to happen when you have 200-ish people. You might need crowd control or security. I can't necessarily communicate with all 200 people at once if I'm standing in a spot like this, whereas if there's 15 of you, I can, right? Level 3 is over 200 attendees. So that just might get a little bit of a like, okay, well, how are we managing this? Who else is responsible for crowd control, et cetera? That could already be outlined in the Serma submission, or it could be something that we have to ask. Any questions on that? This is always the part that kind of get people a little nervy.
No? Okay, great. One thing maybe I'll just add, as Carolyn mentioned, the enhanced review process. Sometimes or you might not realize that your event is under enhanced review. So if, say, as Carolyn mentioned, we might just need to consult with Human Rights and Equity about the documentary that you're choosing to screen. You're not necessarily being notified that's happening behind the scenes. That's why Carolyn will talk a little bit about the Serma timelines, but that's why it's really important that you're adhering to the proper submission timelines to give us that proper time to review and look into things further if we need to.
So with that, the Serma timelines. So really what we need folks to do when they're thinking about an event is work backwards. So I'm going to use made up dates because I don't know what day is a Saturday or a Friday or a Monday. But let's say that you're running an event on March 15th. And let's say you want 5 days of promotion time before your event. So that would say you would want posters up and promotion out by the 10th. That means that your event needs to be approved by the 10th. We require 10 to 21 business days of a submission. So 10 to 21 business days, which I can't math off the top of my head, before March 10th is when you need to submit your event on Experience BU. This is for many reasons. One, I don't even know how many clubs there are now. Over 150? 164. Right. So there's 150 clubs, And we kind of already told you the process of it goes to Chloe and then it comes to us. So 150 of you, one Chloe, and 1.5 of us, right? That's a lot of you. We also do, Lauren and I also review all residence events, all business Goodman Club events, grad student association, BUSU generally. Who am I missing? No, that's all. So that's like 100 plus more outside of that. So sometimes this 10 to 21 business days is literally just volume. There's a lot of you and not a lot of us. It's quite the bottleneck. So that time is for us to be able to just get through the volume in order to get to your event. Your event might not be risky at all. You might be like, we're having a craft night. And there's no risk associated. There's like 40 of you in a room doing crafts. That's not risky. But when there's 150 of those, it just takes us time to get there, right? So that is part of the 10 to 21 business days. The other part is if we do have to consult with other folks or if we need more information from you. So if you've missed something in your submission, we need time to go back and forth before you want to promote the event and before the event runs for us to get that information so we can approve it. We're going to talk, I think, next about things that might delay the Serma process, but we try to build in that time in what our requirement is. Sometimes you might get an approval within way less time than 10 to 21 business days. That depends on volume. That depends on how easy the event is in terms of risk. But that does not mean that you can be like, oh, it was fast last time, I'll submit it. It'll be approved in 4 days, like, don't worry. Maybe we have more volume or more complicated events coming up and we don't have the capacity for that. We also work 8:30 to 4:30, Monday to Friday-ish on those hours. I wish we did, but we don't make enough money to work after hours or on the weekends. So you're submitting something on a Friday night, hoping for it to happen on a Saturday, it's not going to get approved. We don't work with those hours. That is not within our time frames. So just also be mindful that like there's people at the other end of this and that we have other parts of our jobs as well.
So the time of the year, Carolyn mentioned this, beginning of the term, high volume of requests for us, of course. It's the beginning of the term. Lots of clubs are doing those kickoff events, meetings to get things back on track. I think for January, this is total. Carolyn mentioned we review residents, GSA, Goodman, but it was over 700 events for January. So just high volume at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the term. And at the end of the term, I'm learning now is the time of year, lots of end of term galas, end of term trips, bigger events that are actually taking a little bit longer now some might require a bit of an enhanced review. So it's always busy, but the beginning of the term is quite busy and so is the end of the term. Carolyn mentioned higher risk events. Again, Brock Swift Society, maybe you're here, if you're running a friendship bracelet making night, that's much lower risk than, going a year-end gala or going to the University of Toronto for a 3-day conference, overnight conference. Room booking confirmation. This is really important. So when you are doing your Serma form, you need to provide proof of room booking confirmation. We need to know that the room has successfully been booked and is available. So I would say this, correct me if I'm wrong, Chloe, but this is probably like the number one thing that we go back and forth with regards to Serma reviews. It's either missing or the information is incorrect or we don't have all of the details. So it'll show the room was booked, but it doesn't have the date or the time. So that's not giving us the full picture. And I have a slide coming up to show you what I mean, but a room booking confirmation with date, time, location, that's often something that we have to go back and forth on. Missing information, like you mentioned there. So say, for example, you're inviting a guest speaker that's external or even internal. We need to know who that is. We're going to do some research and due diligence on this individual if they're external to make sure, all of those things are being considered. And so we need some information about them. If you're selling tickets for an event or if you're fundraising and those ticket sales are not in your event description, for example. It's a ticketed event and it's $10 to get in, but that's nowhere mentioned in your event information. We're gonna go back to you and say participants need to know that they have to pay to attend. Screening media. So raise your hand if you've heard of audio sin before. Okay, yeah, I learned about it too when I started the role. So audio sin is Brock's platform that allows you to screen media publicly. So if you are showing a film, say you're having, like Brock Horror Club is having a movie night, and they've booked this room, that film needs to be available on AudioSyn. So you would log in using your Brock credentials and you would have access to screen that film. If it's not available on AudioSyn, then you as a club are required to purchase the appropriate license to be able to screen that. We just had that. I think it was about $60-ish. A club, the movie they wanted wasn't available on AudioSyn. They wanted to screen it at their event, and so they purchased the rights to be able to view that film. And yeah, it was around $60-ish. So those kinds of things. Incorrect or inconsistent information. So this isn't, I would say, risk per se, but we are also really trying to ensure that your event is successful. And so if your event description is full of typos, or the information, say in your description, it's, you know, you're saying your event is from 5 to 7, but in the details it's from 2 to 4, like, we're gonna flag that for you. Because we want to make sure that, you know, you're putting all of this work into hosting an event. We want to make sure people know where to go, know what time it starts, so that it's successful. Two things I really want to highlight here. On Experience BU, we only have two options when it comes to an event review. We can either approve it or we can deny it. So when you submit your event on Experience BU, as soon as you submit, click the button Submit, you no longer have editing capabilities. And so say, for example, you're missing your room booking confirmation, or we need more information, the only way we can kick it back to you to edit is by clicking Deny. So I want to name that because the word deny is kind of like harsh language, and you might get an email saying Lauren has denied your event, and you're like, whoa, why? 99% of the time, I would say we're denying it because an edit is needed. We're just asking you to make a change, and Chloe and I will always provide a comment, and Carolyn will always provide a comment of what it is that we're missing. You didn't provide a room booking confirmation, please upload that and resubmit. So I just want to say that so that you're not alarmed if your event is denied. We very rarely deny events, and we don't want to deny events. We want you to host successful events. There's just no option for us to click please edit. It's deny. And the second thing I wanted to just name as well is, if we do kick it back to you to edit it, edit the existing event. You don't need to recreate a new event. That happens sometimes. So you can just edit the existing one and resubmit it. Any questions about that piece? Cool. Room and table bookings. So like I mentioned, this information is required. And so what I've done is just provided a few different screenshots of what a table or room booking could look like. The easiest is if you do book through the room bookings portal, they're going to send you an email, and it's going to give all of the information we need. So a screenshot of that is great. If you get an email, Jamie books the Residence 8 atrium on behalf of a lot of clubs, so an email screenshot from Jamie is great. Like I said, the biggest thing we need is date, time, location. If that information is missing, we are going to ask you to provide something else. Tabling is becoming incredibly popular with clubs, so tabling is a great opportunity for you to showcase your event. If you're selling tickets for an event, promote your event, but you need to also book a table. So just the way that you would book a room to host an event, you do need to book a table, and that needs to go through Serma as well. A couple of other things that might cause delays in Serma review process is you're going to be asked, are you hosting a meeting or are you hosting an event? And this sometimes trips folks up a little bit. So a meeting is really defined as a small members only activity. And the purpose of that meeting is to kind of talk a little bit about, you know, club or group business. So if you're hosting a meeting, you know, there's no alcohol, there's no travel, there's no guest speakers, none of that. It's pretty low risk, small scale. Sometimes people will put that they're hosting a meeting, but then in the visibility section, they're saying it's open to everybody. Well, then that's not a meeting, because then it's not for club members only. So this is somewhere that sometimes we see, and like I said, if there's something done incorrectly, we will provide in the comments, what it is that we're asking you to change. Visibility on Experience BU. So you can determine the visibility of your event. So if you select public, for example, that means anybody can see the event, even folks who are not logged into Experience BU. So anybody non-Brock can go to Experience BU, and if an event is set as public, they can see that. So if you want to do that, you can. Students and staff at Experience BU, that means campus only. So people can only see the event if you're logged into Experience BU. Another option is organization only. So we see this a lot for like residents, for example. Res events aren't open to the general Brock population. They're for res students only. So they would set visibility to organization only, and then invited users only. So this gives you the ability to like select who specifically you want to come to the event and be able to see the event. So those are the visibility options on Experience BU.
Just some benefits to the distinguishing between the public and the campus only. So if an event is listed as public, certain Brock web pages or the Brock News can scrape the website and pull that event into another public platform. So you see the TVs around campus. If there's events on those in the like kind of running banner, that's because they're listed as public on Experience BU. So there are some benefits to having it set as public in order to have increased promotion for an event. But just a note that you still have to log in to RSVP. So I can't RSVP if I went to Niagara College, I can't RSVP to a Brock event. Even if I can see the event, I would have to sign in to RSVP. So because it's for Brock students and staff and faculty. So just a note on what kind of the benefits of it being public are. Otherwise, having it as campus only is quite sufficient. Most of the time, if students are looking for an event, they are logged in. But just in case they're not, it helps to have it be listed as public. But sometimes it depends on what visibility you want in terms of being pulled onto those screens or into web pages. So food is always a little bit clear as mud. Aramark is our dining services and food services provider on campus. The way that agreement functions is that they have exclusive right to providing food on campus. So every food outlet other than Busu food outlets, so Union Station and General Brock, I'm forgetting one, Isaac's, and what's the coffee one called? No, the other one. Up by Isaac's. Daily Grind. Thank you. That wasn't that important, but here we are. My brain got stuck. So those are Busu owned and operated, but every other food outlet is owned and operated by Aramark on campus, like Tim's, everything. So when you are having food at an event, technically Aramark should be providing it. What we have worked out with them over the years is a bit of an agreement that is a little bit muddy. If it is a larger scale event, aka you are spending over $250 on food at an event, it must go through Aramark and you must receive permission from Aramark to go externally. If you're spending under $250, so you're going to Walmart and getting a bunch of snacks, Aramark does not care. They say, have fun. What we might get a little caught on is when you're serving hot food, but it's under $250. That's because we need to be mindful of food safety and handling. So that's the reason that Aramark kind of owns this, is that if someone gets food poisoning or if something goes wrong, they are the ones that are going to be held responsible for that. So that's why they need to give permission. They need to check kitchen licenses. They need to do reviews of who you're bringing onto campus, because they will be the ones held responsible and not you as an individual. So they're being protective and making sure that folks aren't going to get sick or have something go wrong. Does that make sense? This is something that also kind of like goes with the flow. So you might get some comments on Experience BU or in the Serma submission asking for clarification. So if you're saying like, oh yeah, we're going to go to Swiss Chalet and get chicken. I don't know why I thought of that, but I did. We might have the question then of like, okay, how much are you spending? And if you're like, oh, only probably about $100, we're like, okay, great, fine, whatever. But if you're like, oh, it'll be for like $300, then we have to say, okay, like you have to explore with Aramark, or you have to get permission from them to bring that off campus, from off campus. One of the easiest ways to kind of like get around this is to get pizza from Pizza Pizza at Hungry Badger instead of from Pizza Depot or Gino's off campus. We have pizza on campus that you can get, right? Or to get a Take 10 from Tim's on campus as opposed to, I don't even know, another coffee place. Well, we have Starbucks on campus too. But to get something from on campus as opposed to off campus. This also only applies to Brock spaces and not to Busu spaces. So if you are hosting an event in the clubhouse, that will be a Busu space, and Busu has their own set of rules in which you need a kitchen license and you need approval, and that's about it. Aramark does not have like jurisdiction over Busu spaces. This makes it even more confusing because you're like, what's a Busu space and what's not? Clubhouse, Isaac's, for as long as it's still stands, Residence 8, those are Busu spaces in which you can host events. Everything else, every classroom, every pond inlet, tabling, all of those things are Brock spaces and therefore must abide by Aramark rules. Again, if you put something in your Serma submission and we're like, we will just ask you and tell you and work with you to help make that edit. We will never just outright deny something and say you did it wrong. We're going to say I have questions, or also how can we work to make this happen. That's also why that 10 to 21 business days is important, because you might need time to come up with a different option. Okay, waivers. So there's some higher risk events that we will require have waivers completed. So the easiest and most clear ones are the bus monitor contracts. If you're taking a chartered bus somewhere, you must have a designated bus monitor. So that means that you have someone who is the like trip leader on the bus and is like taking attendance and making sure that everyone's there and is the designated leader in that moment. So you must have one per bus. So if you're doing multiple buses or if you're doing a shuttle system, you always need a bus monitor on the bus. We ask for those in advance so we know that you have them in place and we know who they are. Event monitors we also ask for in advance. Event monitors are required when alcohol is being served. The ratio we say is 1 event monitor to every 25 participants. So if there's a small group of you going to Boston Pizza and there could be people could have the option to purchase alcohol, we'll say, okay, we need 1 event monitor, and that person is the designated like driver, sober person to make sure that everyone is consuming responsibly and that there is someone who can be like, if you're driving, you're not driving anymore. If you're doing a big gala off campus and there's at an event hall and there is a bar and there's going to be 200 people, you need at least 8 event monitors. So 1 per 25. Did I math that right? Yeah, great. I have an arts degree. Informed consent waivers we ask for after the event because we don't always know who's going to be at the event. So let's say you are going for a hike on the Bruce Trail. We might say, that's a little bit of a riskier event. Can you make sure that everyone who participates signs this waiver prior to participating? Same if they're taking the bus, we ask that they do an informed consent waiver. Those can be submitted via email or in person. We will remind you of all of this as we approve the event. So if you forget some of this, we'll tell you. And then we'll follow up with you and be like, where are your waivers? I'm trying to think of other reasons why we might have an informed consent waiver. Dodgeball, things like that. Or if you're going rock climbing, or especially if you're travel, that's a big part. That's basically about it. But again, we will tell you when you need one. But it is also helpful. One of my pet peeves is when under alcohol, it says, okay, who are your event monitors? Please upload those contracts. And people just put like NA. It's like, no, it's not applicable because there is alcohol. You've identified there's alcohol. So who are your people? And then that delays things because we have to say, hi, who are your event monitors? And then you have to be like, oh, shoot, I need event monitors. But we already asked you this, right? So like paying attention to those questions, there's very rarely a question in the Serma submission that is not applicable if it's being asked of you. So we're going to do some quick Experience BU basics. As you all probably know, Experience BU is Brock's involvement portal and events calendar. It is a powerful tool for student clubs and campus organizations to share events, collect RSVPs, track attendance, and receive feedback. So this portion is I really just want to highlight the things that you can do with Experience BU so that you use them. Because if you didn't know, now you do. I apologize, this is a lot of writing, but it's important. So asking students for RSVPs can help manage the capacity of an event and can help you know how many people to expect. This is also something that we often see in an event submission where you're like, oh, we have a room capacity of 50, but you're saying you're going to expect 100 people. That doesn't work because your room capacity is 50. But is it a drop-in event? Okay, then people might leave or come, but if it's not, how does that work, right? So RSVPs can be a tool for managing that and for helping communicate to attendees, is there space? Can I still go? What does that look like?
Also, too, just to add to that, too, like some people, like you might be saying, we are going to be decorating water bottles, I don't know, and you only have 25. So you want to just make sure that there's like a cap because you only have so many supplies for your event as well.
That can help folks not come and then feel disappointed that they didn't get some of the supplies that you had, right? So you can create custom RSVP questions. This can be really helpful if you are serving food, so asking for dietary needs in the RSVP, accessibility needs, event preferences. We see this a lot of people will say like, oh, what movie do you want to watch? Or asking any other needs depending on the event. If the RSVP cap is reached, so let's say you set it at 25 because you only have 25 pumpkins for pumpkin carving, because more than 25 is a lot. Students will be added to a wait list. If someone changes their RSVP from attending to not attending, a student on the wait list will be notified and asked to RSVP. So you do not have to manage any of that. That is something that is automatically done through the system. You can also have it show how many spots are left. So if a student is looking at an event, there's 25 spots, you can have it say 20 of 25 spots remaining. And that might push a student to say like, ooh, that's good to know. I do really want to go RSVP right now. Experience BU also automatically sends reminders about the event to those who have RSVP'd. So this can help keep RSVPs up to date. So let's say someone RSVPs 2 weeks before the event, they get a reminder 48 hours before and they're like, shoot, I really should study for that midterm. I don't think I can go to that anymore. They update their RSVP to know someone on the wait list is then able to attend. This will also help you know like how many you have actually attending. As opposed to being like, okay, we have 25 pumpkins, we've bought food for 25, but I have no idea who's coming. And then maybe you have like 8 pumpkins left over, or you have 18 more people and not enough pumpkins. You can also access the emails of attendees who have RSVP'd if you need to send them further information about the event. So this is helpful for kind of riskier events, so reminding folks to wear weather appropriate clothes for an outdoor hike. Okay, it's the day before, we now know what the weather is going to look like. Please make sure you're wearing boots, please make sure you bring a coat, blah, blah, blah. Or to ensure that their RSVP is up to date. Or even to just provide general information of saying, okay, great, like just a reminder, the bus is picking up at this location, the event is at this location, but this is where you'll meet the bus. To help make sure that folks who have RSVP have all the information they need. I'll go real fast. Post-event feedback is an option that you can check automatically. So read the slide is what I'm going to say. Useful, but they can rate the event. You just have to make sure that you are marking folks as attended. Otherwise, this doesn't mean anything. If you don't mark folks as attended, they will not get the automatic feedback. Event attendance. I will fly through this. It's important not only because it gives you information about who is attending your events and what events are the most popular, but selfishly, it also could automatically grant campus-wide co-curriculum credit. You guys run so many great events that provide opportunities for folks to get CWC credit. You can also get CWC credit for running those events, let alone attending them. But it's harder if you don't take attendance. There are 4 ways. The most common ways are the event check-in app, in which you can live check folks in via their email or their event pass, and the self check-in QR code. You've probably seen both of these at events that you've attended. So the QR code is usually by the food, that's my strategy, and says mark yourself as attendant, and a student scans it, it automatically marks them as attendant on Experience BU. So that one's a little bit more passive, whereas the check-in app is very active. There's also a URL if it's a virtual. You can also manually upload. Manual upload always comes with the caveat that you need student emails, not IDs. Experience BU does not know what a student number is. So if you get a student number and a name, you're kind of SOL. You need their Brock email. You also have to remember to upload if you've done manual, which I never do. So all those have information. I talked briefly about the CWC. Read the slide when you get it. We're running out of time, and I know people have class, so I'm just flying through. If you have questions, particularly about Serma, you will see Chloe's name, Lauren's name, and my name in comments, responses, approvals, denials. Please email serma@brocku.ca, not us directly. We have more than one person in the Serma inbox, and so your email will get responded to faster. It's also very helpful for us for tracking, as opposed to if you email us directly, we'll probably just forward you to the Serma email anyway. So please email serma@brocku.ca. Those are other emails if you have questions for Experience BU as a platform or the CWC.